So, hello everyone again, and welcome to our webinar on what your school or college can do for nature recovery within our biosphere. My name is Emily Willoughby, and we are joined by some of our colleagues at the UNESCO Biosphere teams. We've got Sarah Jordan, Andy Bell, Mike Moser, and we are joined by two guest speakers, one from Kingsley School, we've got Steve Whaley, and from Appledore School, we've got Lucy Willens. So just a few housekeeping notes before we start the presentations. If you could please keep your microphones muted while we're going through the presentations. Feel free to put any questions, comments or thoughts in the chat boxes, and we'll get back to it at the discussion period later. If you miss anything, don't worry, we're recording it and you'll get an email from us probably early next week with all of the details on that anyway. So I'll pass on to our first speaker. If I can get to the next slide. So I'm going to pass it over to Andy Bell, CEO of the Biosphere Foundation and UNESCO Reserve Manager.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. My job here is just to really introduce the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and touch on a few things that we have done. So the Biosphere Reserves are designated by UNESCO, so part of the UN, and well, the UNESCO stands for United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization. So the fact that we're dealing with education here is entirely appropriate. So this is part of an intergovernmental science program. So it's all about sharing knowledge, and it's spread over 714 sites currently around the world. And we deal with not just biodiversity, but a whole range of things from, sustainable development has been the main thrust of it. So we deal with, economy, society, as well as the natural environment as well. Do you want to go to the next slide? So North Devon was the first UNESCO Biosphere Reserve to be designated in the UK. It was a big sort of change in the rules of how things were working. And so we were the first one to actually sort of adopt those new rules in the UK. That was 20 years ago this year. And most people think of the Biosphere Reserve just being the core area, which is Braunton Boroughs, but we've actually sort of extended the reserve and it goes right up to the catchment. So it's everything that drains to the North Devon coast. So if you have a cup of water in your hand and you chuck it down on the ground, and if that water ends up in the sea in North Devon, then you're actually inside the Biosphere Reserve. It's probably a long way to test that kind of approach or appraisal, but it's literally how the rules will work. So it's there to connect all the different kind of ecosystems, environments and people that live in that area. And then we go to 12 miles beyond Lundy. And that extension up beyond Lundy was done at the request of the local fishermen. They said that, they want to catch their fish sustainably in a biosphere reserve and market it as that. Therefore, if we could extend the reserve to cover their fishing grounds, that would make sense. So hence we have that 12 miles beyond Lundy. So, within this area, we've got 160,000 inhabitants, all living happily, largely, and our functions as a biosphere reserve, I mentioned, are sort of kind of many. It's not just the conservation part, which is really paramount. That's why we do a lot of effort on that. We pull together a lot of organizations to make that work. Then we have the general concept of sustainable development, so looking at sustainable and green economies, working right across the area. And then our job again is to kind of share how we do that with the rest of the world. Not only to other biosphere reserves, but literally the rest of the world, because the biosphere reserves are set up as living laboratories, if you like, for sustainable development. So it's really important that, the rest of the world gets to know about that and how they can do and adopt those lessons that we've learned. So we're beacons, if you like, for society. And next slide, please. So we are literally looking at sustainable future. So the mantra that we look at is, we're looking for that sustainable. So the mantra, I've gone and lost it in my head. No, it's gone. So really what we are is trying to make a better future by working today in conservation and sustainable development. And through that, we look through a whole raft of things, such as, the green economy. So Sarah, in particular, has been working on our sustainable tourism work. We've had a project for the last 3 years, working with other biosphere reserves on either side of the channel, so with France and with Brighton. We've got a lot of work with the farming sector and the land-based economies and the woodland sector and forestry that we do a significant amount of work with. On the manufacturing side, some of the local companies, such as the drug companies, Perigo and what used to be activists and PAL filters, but also people like TDK Lambda. They are all interested in how they can make their manufacturing more sustainable in the area. And we deal with the service sector as well. So not just the tourism side, but also we have accountants that are interested in how they can make their business greener and make their clients greener all at the same time. And then, of course, we do have the education sector. I mean, sadly, we don't do as much as we'd really love to with the education sector. When we first started off, we were doing a lot of school visits, helping with school grounds and things. And that was taking a lot of resource and time that we didn't really have. So then we started doing teacher training. So we actually did inset training days and that sort of thing. We did a lot of work with Petroc instead of teaching at that kind of level as well. So we were teaching at post A-level, O-level, doing all the training there, again, with primary schools as well. And then working with the Education Advisory Service from Devon County Council, we then started writing curricula. So we've kind of moved up the way of trying to be strategic with the few resources we have, but we recognise that there is a big demand to actually sort of come down and sort of get boots on the ground again in terms of working in education. So it is something that we really do want to get back into. Next slide, please. And just to give an example of how we can sort of use a lot of the work that we do as being an educational resource, you know, like I say, we're a living laboratory. So right across the Biosphere Reserve, we are working with landowners, with communities to improve sustainability generally and conservation. And in this particular example, this is on the River Humber at Coombe Martin. And in this area, we've been looking at how we can change land use and improve water quality and also reduce flooding down at Coombe Martin. And we started off working with the Environment Agency on the flooding side first. So this is about planting trees, leaky dams, and all those kind of interventions. And then South West Water said, well, there is that big water quality problem about the Bathing Water Beach, which is partly their problem, but also partly a land use problem and partly a dog owner's problem. And so we've been working on the landward side of things and the land use. And what we've done here is we've taken an experiment where we've installed, or we're just in the process of installing, a lot of sensors in the river and on the land so that we can monitor what's going on, whether it is flooding or water quality. So we're looking at phosphates, bacteriological loading, water volumes coming down, turbidity, salinity, and all of that gets put into machine learning, where we can then sort of try and monitor what's going on, look at patterns, and then be predictive about what's going on. And that's great for those particular stakeholders, but what we want to do is make that data that's openly available. So schools, for example, could also then lock into this data and see what's going on. And it means that then they can start drawing conclusions, you know, and hypotheses about saying, if it's going to do this, will it do this? And the data should be all there to test it. We had a similar thing a few years ago where we worked with, again, it was just a handful of schools with a handful of meteorological stations, and was looking at weather right across the Biosphere Reserve. So I had these constant recorders. Everybody could see each other's weather station online. And then you could say, well, what's the weather like in Bideford or Appledore? How's that compared to West Buckland School, for example, where it was much higher, much colder? So you could sort of draw these lessons out from the data and et cetera we can provide for geography lessons or sort of science lessons, maths lessons at any kind of level that you wanted to. So it's just an example there of how we've got a lot of resources we can use, but we can use them even better, if you like, for education. So I'm going to hand over to Mike next, and Mike is the chair of our Nature Improvement Group. So they've been championing the biodiversity angle for the Biosphere Reserve for the last few years and got some exciting work to share. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to meet with you. Our invitation today is because we need your help in addressing the ecological emergency here in Northern Devon. Yeah, we think that schools and colleges can play a particularly important role in joining us on that journey. Yeah, we're all fully aware that the planet has passed the safety limits in terms of both climate change and nature loss. And the patterns that we're seeing here in Northern Devon are just as severe, if not more so, as in many other parts of the world. I know that many of you are doing lots of fantastic work already, but it's only by really getting everyone working together that we're really going to be able to turn the tide on nature loss in Northern Devon, hence the invitation. So this slide just emphasizes really how important nature is to the area. It brings everything, the landscape, the air quality, water quality, soils, climate, which make the area so important. The economy, tourism, agriculture, forestry and fisheries, all supported by nature. And of course, it makes it a wonderful place to live as well. So it's really important that we look after these assets. Next slide, please. The Biosphere Reserve, as Andy said, achieved its designation from UNESCO, largely because of its really high quality environment. And we have this large partnership which is working together to try and solve many of the global challenges. But so far, our work hasn't been enough for nature. Business as usual with the conservation organizations working together, you know, in the last 20 years, working incredibly hard, putting all our energy into it. But the trends in nature are still downwards. So we've really upped our ambition levels, and in the last year, we've launched a really ambitious nature recovery plan. At the moment, it covers the landward component of the Biosphere Reserve, but within the next months, we're going to have also an action plan for the marine component of the Biosphere Reserve. Next slide, please. So what's the problem? Well, nature has been declining here for many centuries, but it's really in recent decades that the problem has accelerated quite dramatically. And we now find nature really is confined in very small fragments of the area. And even in these areas, nature is continuing to fade. Now, it's not happened everywhere. There are some habitats, particularly inaccessible areas like cliffs and rocky shores, where nature hasn't been particularly impacted. But it's particularly across the rest of the area where we've lost the flower-rich grasslands, the woodlands, the wetlands, the scrub, upon which nature is so dependent. And this slide just outlines the main root causes: historical habitat conversion for agriculture, recent intensification of land use, lots of nutrients and biocides being used, leading to problems of eutrophication in the rivers, and lots of pollinators, and of course climate change acting on top of all these root causes. And the consequences are that we are losing nature across our landscapes. The landscapes have become simplified. We're losing the dynamism and the functionality which nature depends upon. And soils are being degraded, and particularly our rivers and freshwater systems are in trouble. Next slide, please. So just taking a typical aerial view, this is the middle tour. You can see that our woodlands, the actual cover of woodlands is remarkably low. We have one of the lowest woodland covers of any European country. And the woodlands that there are extremely isolated. They're fenced off from other habitats. The grasslands and the arable systems, which cover much of the land, are increasingly intensively managed and support relatively little in terms of nature. The Tor floodplain, you can see the Tor running through there. The floodplain wetlands have all disappeared, and the Tor itself is just a ribbon of habitat, not engaging with the other habitats across the area. So all these changes have meant that nature is declining. Just to take an example, the birds, the breeding birds in Northern Devon, 44% of the breeding bird species in the area are either significantly declining or in fact have been lost. Several species have been lost already. And iconic species like the Atlantic salmon, which occurs in both the Tor and the Torridge, used to be really abundant, but they are heading towards local extinction. So we've got a real problem. Next slide, please. Many of us think that urban development is a real cause of problem for nature. Of course it is, it does have local impacts where it happens, particularly on the coast where urban development has been particularly pronounced. But in fact, often it's occurring on land which is already relatively poor for nature. It may be on improved fields, for example, and it's not really occurring at a scale that we feel has been the driver of nature loss in the Biosphere Reserve. And in fact, many of these areas, brownfield sites and urban areas, offer considerable opportunities for green space development, which can help nature. Next slide, please. So what are we doing about this? Well, as I mentioned, we spent last year about 50 specialists from across the Biosphere Reserve worked together to put together a nature recovery plan for the area, which we launched towards the end of last year, and we're now in full implementation mode. You can find this online. The vision is that by 2030, so 10 years time, a bit less now, 10 years time, we want nature to be in recovery mode. And we've split the plan into 5 action plans covering these different categories. There'll be an additional one, as I mentioned, for marine coming up fairly soon. But you can look through these, and we've identified the priorities for nature recovery in each of these areas. And we've now got teams working to drive the implementation of these forward. And the series of webinars that we're organizing with yourselves today, we had an excellent one with businesses a couple of weeks ago. We're having another one with parish councils and community groups in the near future. The aim is to really try and harness the effort of the community right across the board to get behind this effort. Now, I've got very little time, so I can only give you a flavor of what's in them. So if I can have the next slide, please. The absolute key priority across all the action plans is making more space for nature. So habitat restoration and recreation, more flower-rich grasslands, more woodlands, more wetlands, and much better connectivity between all these habitats so that nature can expand and improve in condition across these areas. Next slide, please. We want to support species recovery and also some reintroduction of species. So focusing on some of the Devon special species, things like the dormouse you see on the left there. But there are some other commoner species which have got really important needs. The shorebirds, which use the estuary, for example, are in considerable trouble because there is so much more recreational pressure now on the estuary that they can't find places to roost in the winter, safe places. So we need the councils to work with the conservation organizations to find some really safe roosting sites. And we need education to educate people of the challenges that there are with people walking dogs out on the estuary. We've got some really exciting plans for species reintroductions. We're hoping to have beavers across the Tor and Torridge systems by the end of the Nature Recovery Plan 10-year period, but also just helping some species like osprey, white stork, come back into the area, and possibly even white-tailed sea eagles on Lundy. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Next slide, please. Critical to this is really getting nature integrated into the farmland and urban environments. And, we've got a huge amount of work to do working with farmers for more regenerative agricultural practices and getting them to engage with the new land management schemes which are becoming available. There's some really exciting stuff coming online in the next few years. And there will be big opportunities for the farming community to engage more directly in supporting nature and carbon sequestration, etc. Also in the urban environment, the district councils are really committed to engaging in nature's recovery. And there are many opportunities to use planning and development to improve the area for nature. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, this engagement with the different sectors is so important to us. What you're seeing today is part of that process and is a really concerted rollout that we'll be pushing. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of schools and colleges and the education sector in general, You're obviously crucial to this whole process. Many of you are doing a huge amount already to help in the right direction. And really today's a chance to discuss how we can strengthen that collaboration. What can we do? And we're very much in your hands to guide us on this. You're the experts. We can we know what needs to be done in terms of improving nature across the North Devon biosphere and tackling the ecological emergency, but we really need your help in doing it. So we've listed just here 6 points. Firstly, if you haven't already done so, we'd really like you to sign our Nature Recovery Declaration as a school and encourage your students as individuals to do so. Emily will explain how to do this, but it's a sort of first step on the journey really to all start working together. We've had a fantastic sign up of lots and lots of individuals and businesses and organizations, and already quite a few schools, but that would be great. You're doing already some superb stuff about making space for nature in your grounds, and we'll hear a couple of examples about that. There's so much that can be done. And obviously your role as educators, absolutely crucial. And the more you can include local examples, as Andy said, about what the challenges are and what can be done about it into your curriculum, that would make a real difference. And we'd really like to hear how you can do that. All of us can reduce our impacts. I'm sure you're doing lots and lots on that already, so I won't dwell on that one. But I think number 5, be a voice for nature. Engaging your students, your staff, your parents, and encouraging them to take action at home. Set some challenges to do something at home. Can make a real difference. So anything you can do in that regard would be great. And please do tell us what you're doing. We've got a scheme online called Pledge for Nature, where all of the actions that are being taken across the community can be recorded, and that's really important because we really want to know what we can do for nature. So final slide, just like to say thanks for coming along today, and we'd really like to hear from you what you think you can do to help. How can we extend this small network that we've got today across the many schools that there are in the Biosphere Reserve? We'd really like to hear your guidance on that. So over to the next speaker. Emily, I'll let you do the introductions.
Lovely, thank you Mike, and thank you Andy for introducing us as well. So I'm going to hand us over to Sarah Jordan, who coordinates our Biosphere Business Partner Scheme. Sarah.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Jordan. I am the Biosphere Business Partner Coordinator. Thanks, Em. This scheme, I just want to point out to start with, it was initially set up purely for tourism businesses as part of our biocultural heritage tourism project that I was working on. But it worked so well that we have opened it up to businesses across the biosphere, but also to community groups, schools and charities, as we believe it's a really good way to get everybody involved and network with each other and see what people are doing. So this scheme is actually an eco accreditation scheme, which is reviewed by other businesses or schools or charities once a year, and it is also free to join. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll tell you a bit more about it. So what happens is you need to select at least 5 commitments from 3 categories, which are conservation, local development and awareness raising. There's a number of different commitments that you can choose from each of those categories, but I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. So for conservation, it could be that you might put up a bird box around your school site, or create a small wildflower meadow. Local development means that you use some local suppliers, maybe for your food deliveries, or promote local suppliers, but to engage really with local people. And awareness raising is all about sharing the great work that you're doing, and taking part in some of our events or joining us as guest speakers, just to raise awareness. And I think schools particularly have a really good way to be able to do this with raising awareness about the biosphere through your students and passing it on to parents. Next slide, please. So in return, if you sign up to become a business partner, you will get a North Devon Biosphere Business Partner Certificate. There it is. You also get a logo that you can display on your website. You will be invited to events and networking meetings with like-minded businesses, schools, charities, all working towards the core sort of theme of sustainability. And you will also have a directory listing on our Biosphere Business Partner webpage, where we ask you to regularly send, or as soon when you can, send in your good news stories where you have achieved some of your commitments. And we're hoping those directory listings will gradually fill up with lots of great stories that we can share of what businesses, schools and community groups have been doing. I also send out a bi-monthly newsletter, so there's an index sort of there on what was in an issue before Christmas. And you also have the opportunity to become a star business, where we look at different businesses and schools that have done really well at a certain point and award them our star business. Yeah, next slide, thank you. So I think really it's about celebrating where we live in a UNESCO designated site. It really is our unique selling point as a region, and it's really about signing up to this and being proud that you're part of the Biosphere and promoting that to your students and your students' parents, so that they are aware of where they live in such a beautiful area, and ensuring that that awareness continues to carry on far into the future to ensure that the Biosphere stays amazing for everybody in the future. So if you would like to sign up to the Biosphere Business Partner Scheme, like I said, it is free. Or if you want to know more, you can visit our website, which I've put the link on there. Or you can just drop me an email. My email address is there as well. Thanks, Em.
Lovely, thank you, Sarah. So my turn to present. I promise I'll keep it short and sweet. So we've mentioned the Pledge for Nature project in a couple of these presentations. It's a really lovely project that really tries to galvanise community action for nature recovery, improvement and increasing biodiversity across the biosphere. And they stem around different seasonal activities that might seem small and insignificant, but actually are really good at improving biodiversity across the biosphere, but engaging people as well. And there are loads of different ideas on our Pledge for Nature website, most of which would be really lovely to engage students with. And it's things that you can do over your school grounds, but that also could inspire children to take this home to their parents and families as well, to think, we've put up bird boxes in school, I'd really like to do that at home as well. It's just a really nice conversation starter to think, what wildlife do you see in your school compared to at home or anywhere else in the biosphere? So I think we've nearly got 900 pledges across the biosphere and beyond its boundary as well. So it's a really brilliant project, and I think it absolutely inspires people to see, oh, what's my local neighbour doing, what's our local school doing, and it just gets people thinking about what they can be doing more for nature. So one of the pledges that people can make now is to sign our Nature Recovery Declaration, and this is something that is associated with our Nature Recovery Plan that Mike Moser introduced to you. And this is just a way of schools, businesses, individuals and other organisations to pledge their support for our vision for nature recovery by 2030. I know that text is probably quite small on your screens, but our schools list is, while it's very valuable that we've got a few on there, we'd love to see more schools on there. So after this, it'd be brilliant if you had a think about how you could maybe encourage your school to sign it, or if you'd be happy to sign on behalf of your school. I'll send out all of the links afterwards, but yeah, I think we've got nearly 500 signatures for the declaration now, so there's a real precedent in North Devon for nature recovery, so it'd be brilliant to see some more on there. I am excited to announce that today we are actually launching the next round of a grant that you guys can apply for. It's not just for schools, it's for any community spaces, so park, school grounds, churchyards and woodlands. And this is in conjunction with holidaycottages.co.uk. We're very grateful that they've given us a nice little sum of money to put towards our grant scheme. And to be eligible, you have to obviously be within a community space, so a school does count, but you have to fill out one of our application forms that basically details what your objectives are for the area, how the area will be managed, and what sort of management plan you can have over the next, I think it's 5 years, and what funds you are applying for that you might need for specific things like fees or equipment, and things like that. So we can talk a little bit more about that one later, but I just wanted to mention it now to get you hopefully excited about it. So yeah, have a look at our website afterwards. Don't worry about writing down the link, I'll send it to you after, or feel free to email me directly and we can talk about what you can do on your school grounds. So we're going to go straight on to the next speaker. So we're very thankful to have Steve Whaley from Kingsley, so I'll pass it over to you, Steve.
Oh, hi, thank you very much. Have I unmuted?
Yes.
Most of my lessons when we've been online, I've had to kind of say, "Can you hear me?"
No, you're good. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. I attended the business Zoom meeting the other day, and it was really exciting to see so many different individual groups doing great stuff. And I love the fact that you guys are coordinating and bringing us all together. Like, genuinely, it's really, really exciting. So Kingsley School, we've been developing this Earth Centre project just before COVID hit, really. I start with the old quote, you know, what kind of Earth are we leaving for our children, but what kind of children are we leaving for our Earth? And that's fundamentally where we are in school, isn't it? We have access, you know, we can brainwash these little people, and we have all the little people. We have from 3 months all the way through to you know, sixth formers. Yeah, if you want to jump onto the next slide, the Earth Centre, you know, lots of schools will focus on, there'll be a technology school, or there'll be a maths school, or a sports school, and we are all those things, but actually we have this big ethos about environmental sustainability in everything. So it isn't just about a couple of post-16 courses, it isn't just about formal accreditations, it's about everything they do, from the reception all the way through to the senior school. And I'll give you a good example. We've had, as everywhere has, we've had a few absences in and out because of COVID, and we had a bit of a shortage of staff down in the dining room, and so we had to switch to disposable plates because of time, and they were recyclable. We made sure they've been wooden knives and forks, but the number of staff and pupils that have come to me and said, "What the hell, why are we using these?" And I was just like, brilliant, I'm so pleased that you're all questioning that. So it's on there, I've mentioned, I know you can all read, but ecological literacy. And if you jump to my next slide, that is something that we're, you know, as I say, right the way through, within every subject area, understanding how nature works. You know, within a history lesson, you know, that we've written into the curriculum, looking at historical farming practices and landscape evolution. The art teachers are deconstructing the landscape and understanding, not just from a let's just paint a picture kind of, even in sport and PE, they're not just running around, they are, you know, involved in various ways. Like it's still ongoing, we're still not there, but we're well ahead of the curve, and in everything they do in very different parts of the school, they're aware that they're part of Kingsley School Earth Centre. So next slide, I think. As a geographer, you know, you think it was just geographers that were environmentalists, and as soon as you start talking about stuff, everyone on the school campus is an environmentalist. It doesn't take a lot. So we actually, you know, obviously we're very blessed living where we are, and we try to make sure that our pupils know that. You know, we do have borders that come from within the UK and overseas, but even our local pupils, they need to look up from stroking their piece of glass, you know, all evening, and realise, look where we live. And I've actually included bottom left there is High Wilhays looking across the Yes Tor, and the top right is Dinger, and both of those are within the North Devon biosphere. So we make them appreciate where they are. If you jump onto the next slide, there's That's one of my photos. That's year 7 down at Mouth Mill. We were looking at sort of coastal processes, but we were also doing the historical stuff, the lime kilns. It's our playground as well, and we make sure that they appreciate that. We take them, you know, surfing when the light is in the in favour. But even the littlies are out, you know, building mini beast ends. That was actually those bags of litter down on the burrows. That was actually a PE lesson. We took them down there, and it was a race to fill the bags, and they all got sweaty and loved it. If you jump onto the next slide, I'm trying to go fast because I talk too much, I know. This is the jewel in the crown. Okay, this is the ecology zone, and this is a commercial sized horticulture enterprise. So the pupils, as you can see, are entirely engaged in the developing of it, but it's a live field centre. It isn't just, and I've had to change the vocab with a few people, it's not just the allotment or the veg patches. We've got, those beds are 10 metres long and by almost a metre wide. We've done some soil carbon baseline testing, so we know how much carbon is in our soil. Now, if you talk to some of the guys here in school, they'll tell you far better than I will, but it's to do with the microbiology. So the mulch that's along the sides, there's some fungal interaction with the soil. I never listened in soil lessons at A-level geography, but there's a fungal interaction, and we are fixing carbon a lot, actually. But on top of that, you know, our littlies there are understanding where their food comes from, and that's really vital as well. So we've got our A-level economic students, business study students. They're looking at how they can actually then sell our produce. So it's in, you know, everything goes on down there. There's the whole school are engaged down in the ecology zone. And in fact, the next slide, if you bump onto that one, I'm not going to talk through it all, but you can see the size. You know, if you imagine each of those little black lines is 10 meters, there is going to be a second polytunnel for germination, but it's huge. Like, it's not just going to supply the canteen, but it's we've got some the apple trees there. They're all West Country varieties. You know, they were selected. We've got we've got these information boards around the school site now, so you can come and visit us. If you jump to the next slide, habitat create. Oh no, community. Sorry, have I missed one, or have I put it on the wrong slide? Yeah, community. Get the kids involved. We've got the eco school, the green flag eco school. We're working on that. I've got my eco council. They're the pestering everybody around the school. The bottom left is tree planting with the National Trust. Because we got the Plastic Free Schools Award, first one in North Devon, I'm just going to say, but because we got that, we were given one of the Surfers Against Sewage beach cleans kits. Absolutely brilliant. So we've got that on our every term, every half term, we put it in the bulletin and just remind parents, why don't you get your kids out, come and borrow the stuff and go and do it. And I'd like to say we have more than we do, but we get enough. A few will do that. So yeah, community, get them engaged, because it's the kids, you know, that really need to be the ones. Jump to the next slide, please. I'm hoping, yeah, habitat creation. Everyone talks about, didn't the business lot, they were all about bug hotels, weren't they? And we do love a bug hotel. Those the middle photographs, that was just Borders making bird boxes, and we talked about siting them, and we've got bat boxes. We're ever so proud of our that tripod thing is the beehives, wild beehives, and so they're not producing honey, they're not for our benefit, but they are for our benefit, because we've got 2 of those, and the 2 colonies that are in them are obviously going to do that thing with pollen, you know. They'll look after us as well. So, and they're brilliant. Get the kids down there. We actually, that one there, the queen went inside. There's a hole underneath and it's hollow. The queen went inside, but a load of they swarmed on the side and put honeycomb on the outside. So we had to get a specialist in recently to relocate the queen. Otherwise they wouldn't survive. That on the top left is dog vomit. That on that last slide, sorry, is dog vomit fungus. What a great thing! But it shows that the mulch is creating that fungal habitat. Those are the kids making bird lard seed things. Okay, jump onto the next slide. This is where I've got to say a huge thanks to Andy and Sophia. Craddock, one of my ex-pupils, for arranging, largely completely organising for us. So we've taken back a hectare of land. We're really lucky on the slope down to the Kenwith Valley that we used to go out to pasture to a local farmer. And with Andy and Sophia's help, we're pretty much at the point where we've got 2,650 native trees, and Andy's expertise is that, you know, we know what we've planted is correct. Contractors were involved because it takes a long time to plant those many trees, and then with some at the start and a whole bunch in the last month, the pupils have done, and then mulching them. They're taking a load of mulch around the base, clearing the grass. We can't wait because it's going to be such a great space. And there's Mark at the bottom there with the electric strimmer. They love that. Right, if you jump to the next slide, please. I'm trying to go as quick as I can. We think that it's really important that they understand where their food comes from, and a lot of the food in our school canteen has been and will be coming from the ecology zone. The pupils, they actually carry the food, the produce to the canteen for us, and that, like, especially the little ones. Parents have been saying to me that they regularly have had them saying, oh, well, I tried a courgette, and they'd never eat a courgette, but in school, because they were involved in the growing of it, but of course a lot of that is also going to be, we're thinking about setting up like a little farm shop almost, and the kids can get the community in, because we're going to have a lot of produce. The next slide is related to that. Not great images, but we've invested in these Rydang composters. So we produce far too much food waste. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine. Probably about 150 litres a day of food waste. Measured in litres because of the containers, so we had to do something about that. We couldn't have it just going off to landfill, so we've invested in these things, and over 3 months, it does happen a bit quicker. It's really effective. That will then go out into our compost. We've got these great big wooden composting bins, and that's where those are going. But again, the kids are involved. The pupils are the ones that are collecting the food waste, putting it in. We've got the little trolleys, and they take it down where Mr. Hickson, our ecology zone manager, sorts it all out. And I think the last slide is just a bit of a boast. So we applied for ISA Sustainability Environmental School of the Year, and that was awarded to us last year, which was lovely. The only downside of that, it was brilliant for my ego, but the downside of that was that normally they have like a really fancy London hotel, you all sit round the table and all that surprised when you we just did it over Zoom because of COVID. So what we do here is, most schools are doing really good stuff. I just think we're so lucky with our investment, and with this as a main focus, and off the back of that, I really want to engage with anyone who wants to be involved, wants to, reach out, wants to pair up, come and steal some of our good ideas, please do. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Steve. That was brilliant. So much amazing work happening at Kingsley. It's brilliant. We're just going to pass over to our last speaker, Lucy from Appledore Primary School. Thanks, Lucy.
Hello. Thanks very much. You can hear me okay, right? Yeah. I just wanted to say that that we've really taken the approach at Appledore that we wanted to really innovate in what we do outdoors, in outdoor learning. So we've really been thinking outside the box, but we also want to make most use of what there is around us. So first of all, we started, as we always do with anything we do, is we listen to the children and we hear what they want to do. And what they've been saying is that they want to do more outdoor science. They want to do things locally to help the planet. They want to do real research, and they want to change how people feel about the local environment. And they also want to go on enjoying learning more outdoor skills. Thank you. Next slide. But of course, we're a small school. We haven't got huge resources. So we've got to be practical about this. What we do needs to be sustainable in many ways, not just environmentally, but it also needs to be financially sustainable. So we need to be able to work within the resources we have at low cost. And also in a sort of socio-cultural way, we want this to be a really inclusive process. So we want whatever we were going to do to bring in the community around us. We wanted something that would be fully integrated with the new science curriculum we're writing, so that we bring the local stuff right into that curriculum. And we want to offer a unique new sort of opportunity for our teaching assistants, really a wonderful resource that is often overlooked as of what they're capable of bringing to the school. And so we wanted to be able to look at maybe we could train them to do more outdoor work. They actually do come outside. They work outside with Rebecca, who runs the outdoor learning. But we thought it'd be nice to encourage them to be able to do more. And also, we wanted to look at making the best use of the accessible local resources that were right on our doorstep. It's very easy to get on a coach and go a long way and do something exciting. But the stuff that is there right next to us is what we want to focus on. The stuff that we can walk to, the stuff that we can keep going back to and learning from. So all of this brought together, we saw as being an opportunity to develop the school grounds as a micro reserve within the North Devon Biosphere, because this allowed the children to really focus, and the parents and the teachers and everybody else, to really focus on one idea that would bring together all the things that I've just talked about. Thank you. Next slide. So what does this bring to the school? It's no good doing something new to the school if it doesn't bring some real benefits to it. And I have to thank Emily and Andy and also Rose at Northern Boroughs for bringing in lots of really good ideas of how we can do things here. So it means the children have become rangers and manage their own reserve. This is empowering the children to take responsibility for the environment that they're within. They're now able to look at going to having training in ranger skills on the local reserves within the biosphere, and then bringing those skills back and interpreting them in their own ways to make their own reserve work. We're using the Pledge for Nature system, which is brilliant, as a way for the children to choose what sort of activity modules they want to do within their reserve. And as they do that, it also means that they get to be able to show people what they're doing and get acknowledgement for what they're doing, which is really important for children, and to evaluate it for themselves. But it's a good way for they can structure what they're doing. So we're going to go deep into that. We're also, they can go on to do other things, and I won't go in detail into these, but things like giving guided tours of their reserve, exchange knowledge with other schools, contact reserves in other countries, and start comparing how they're doing things, not only with a larger reserve within thing, but how can we bring those wider and exciting ideas that we use in geography into what they're learning to do, and see the differences as well as the similarities. Also, we have the after school club, the Ranger Club, which means that children who want to go on doing things and extend what they're doing and dig deeper, they can do that as well. Really important that they see this as something that they can do after school and take home and do micro reserves within their own gardens as well. The other thing is, we talked about having a trained team here and the teaching assistants. We've already been talking to Rose on the boroughs about the fact that we're going to be taking groups of teaching assistants down onto the boroughs with Rose, not with children, but as adults on their own first, and give them the chance to be trained in some of the things that they could be doing with the children, and really thinking about how they can make this a really fun and exciting experience, not only for the children, but also for themselves. Thank you. Next one. So where's this taking us next? We talked about wanting to do this reserve ourselves, but now we're also working collaboratively with Jack Wolfenden of South Malton Community Primary School, and they're looking at doing the same thing. And what's interesting is that between us, we're going to be able to look at the fact we can have the same aims, but within different contexts, different resources, different needs, and come up with individual plans that are the same and yet different. So it's possible for any school to do it. And Jack and I are passionate about the fact that we love to create a chain of school micro reserves across the biosphere and see if we can really link up the big reserves with lots of little tiny reserves. And we'd love to hear, as indeed we've heard before. We'd just love to hear from people who want to do things like this with us. So thank you very much. Thank you, Emily.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Having worked with you a little bit with Jack on the micro reserve idea, it's such a nice idea that just really gets the children fully immersed in the environment, doesn't it? So thank you, that was brilliant.
I think it's the ownership that's important. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I believe we've got a few questions in the chat. Should we have a look at them?
So no, not so much questions. It was more just about somebody sent their apologies because they had to leave, and I said that we could send the recording. It was fine, and somebody asked if it was possible to send the slides as well. So I've explained that, yeah, we're going to send the slides, a link to the recording, and any links that we've mentioned for websites and things like that. We'll send you will send an email.
I will.
At the end, probably the end of next week, I'd imagine it'll be.